What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV, back here for yet another update, second update of the day, and we've got a few to get through regarding incomings and outgoings. Regarding outgoings first, Fabrizio Romano says that AC Milan keep working on a new right-back, and Emerson Royal remains strong alongside Thiago Santos. It's understood that Emerson does want the move and he's keen on joining Milan. No issues on personal terms. Told that Tottenham want around 20 million euros to sell Emerson, and now it's up to the clubs to agree a fee.
Yeah, I think 20 million is fair. I think
euros as well.
Yeah, I think that's a fair deal from Tottenham's point of view. Yes, we're making a loss. Obviously, we heard earlier a few weeks ago that it was 30 million, so I don't know if the price has dropped or if this is a more accurate figure. Obviously, Romano's usually pretty reliable on this kind of stuff. And hopefully that should be a price where AC Milan, even though they're struggling for money, if they really want him, they can afford 20 million euros, I'm assuming. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's the fee. I wouldn't be surprised if this deal was getting close to being done.
Yeah, I really hope so. And it's yeah, I always thought that Emerson would obviously fancy this move over the other ones that have been touted about, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, but Milan is definitely a viable option. See him in the Champions League next season. So I think it's good for all parties, good for him, good for us, good for them. Well, hopefully good for them.
But will Fonseca want him? We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that the clubs would be talking if they, like, up to this stage, if they really don't think that the manager wouldn't want him, unless they're going to go above, yeah, you know what I mean, unless it's a club signing.
Who knows? I don't know how they operate.
Yeah. Has Fonseca joined? Has he actually joined?
Not officially, but I think he's the one who looks like really close at the moment.
Let's talk about Troy Parrott now, as Alistair Gold says that RZ Alkmaar understood to be interested in signing Troy Parrott this summer. Alkmaar did finish fourth ahead of Ajax, who this season in Eredivisie, and Alkmaar have qualified for the Europa League. 17 goals in 29 games this season, 7 goals in his last 3 games in the relegation playoffs, 2 hat-tricks of that as well for Excelsior. So,
and 5 assists as well.
5 assists, yeah, 5 assists as well. But Troy Parrott against Spurs in the Europa League next season?
That'd be interesting. I do think if we're going to sell him to Alkmaar, obviously he's got a year left, doesn't he? So the price probably will be around, I would say, at least 10 million, I would assume.
I think less.
You think less?
Yeah, with 1 year left on his deal.
I think for a guy who scored 17 goals last season in Eredivisie, you're looking at least 10 million, I would have thought.
Yeah, I think...
And he's a young player as well, 22 years of age. I think that's the kind of... Otherwise, it might be worth giving him a new contract and keeping him just for the club train quota, rather than giving over 10 million, less than 10 million. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. But I think it actually could be less. I think maybe between 5 and 10, maybe like 7.5 million or something like that.
But is it worth? But if we're going to do that, is it worth selling him? I would say no.
Depends. It depends what kind of impact he's going to have in the first team. It depends if Ange Postecoglou rates him. Because if Ange is saying to Daniel Levy or the hierarchy who make a decision saying, I just don't rate this guy, he's not going to fit into my team, then you may as well just get rid for what you can get.
I think then it's worth giving him a new deal and then sending him on loan to either a high-end championship club or maybe a club in the top league and somewhere else apart from Holland, see how well he does. Because if he does well again, bam, all of a sudden that's a much bigger fee you're getting.
But again, if he doesn't, then the fee then drops again.
Yeah, but how much are you really losing? If you're saying less than 10 now, is it going to drop below 5?
It could do very easily.
Okay, but you're talking a few million here. I think the potential upside is a lot more worth it than selling him for like 7-8 million. I don't think that's worth it.
But 8 million to 10 million is only a few million as well.
Yeah, but 10 million, I think even 10 million might be not enough. But I think 10 million is like the cheapest you should go for a player who's just scored a good amount of goals in the top league in the Eredivisie, and for a relegated club as well. So it shows that maybe if he was at a better club, he could do even more. So I don't think I would sell him for a lesser fee like that. I think 10 million should be a fair price for him.
We'll see how it goes, but AZ Alkmaar are interested in Troy Parrott for a summer move. Let's move on to potential incomings and 2 strikers to talk about. First of all, Rodrigo Muniz, as journalist called Tiago Fernandes, a Brazilian journalist, says that Tottenham and Chelsea have made contact over a possible move for Rodrigo Muniz, currently managed by a company CAA Base, who obviously have very close ties with Tottenham. And in the last 16 games that he played for Fulham, he scored 9 goals in the Premier League. Kind of just came out of nowhere, didn't he, last season? He's had loan spells to Middlesbrough, been nowhere with Fulham, and halfway through the season he just started banging them in. So I'm not really too sure what to make out of this one.
Obviously he's physically strong, he's a tall striker. His finishing kind of wasn't the best up until the last few months of the season. All of a sudden he found his finishing boots, and obviously he's clearly a confidence player. You saw when he got Player of the Month award, he was crying. It meant so much to him, and it just shows the kind of how much he's had to go through to get just to this stage where he's starting to score goals regularly in the Premier League. I have to be honest, whenever I've seen him, he doesn't strike to me as a player who's going anything more than a good vein of form. And I don't think I'm not expecting him, next season to be a 20-goal-a-season striker just because he got 9 goals last season. I do think he's clearly a guy who can score goals in the Premier League. I don't see him as an obvious upgrade to someone like Richarlison, who we have in the squad right now. I don't think his hold-up play is actually particularly strong. He's obviously quite good when you're swinging crosses in the box and he's fighting for them, and obviously his finishing's pretty decent. But I don't know if he's anything more than a player going for a purple patch.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. You're looking at the kind of way his scoring went. He had like a burst of games where he scored loads of goals, and in the last 8 games of the season, he only scored 1. So I think that kind of tells you about him. I mean, he is 23 years of age, so he's still quite a young player. And to do that in the Premier League at that age for a club like Fulham, who a lot of people tipped to go down this season, Marco Silva's done a really good job with him. So maybe in a better team, can he take it to the next level?
I think the jury's out on that. I'm not convinced. I'm not saying no, but I'm not convinced that the answer is yes.
And last but not least, let's talk about Santiago Gimenez again. According to reports in Mexico via the Standard, Feyenoord striker Santiago Gimenez has said yes to a move to Tottenham. It is understood that the 23-year-old prefers a switch to London, and therefore Spurs are in pole position to land his signature ahead of Liverpool. The left-footed frontman is wanted by his former manager Arne Slot, who recently joined Liverpool, but it now seems that he's closing in on a move to Spurs. Gimenez is expected to be available for £38 million this summer, which seems pretty low considering the rate of the top-level strikers that are going for.
Who reported that?
It's reports in Mexico via the Standard.
Oh, interesting.
But I don't know. I'm so conflicted with Santiago Gimenez because he scored a bucket loads of goals this season. First half of the season, he was completely on fire. And then second half of the season, he did go off the ball. I did read somewhere that second half of the season, he was playing with a bit of an injury. So that maybe contributed to maybe the drop-off that he did have. But there are like conflicting reports saying if he, can sink or swim in the Premier League. I'm not too sure.
I think from what I saw from him in the Champions League, he does seem like a player who can definitely perform at a higher level. Obviously, at £40 million is a pretty cheap deal, to be honest, considering the next cheapest striker you're probably looking at is maybe a Tony at 40 million. Other than that, you're going to have to pay a lot more. But on the flip side, you're paying 40 million or 38 million for a striker who got 6 more goals than Troy Parrott did in the Dutch First Division last season. So it's not exactly like, are those 6 goals worth an extra 40 million, if you know what I mean? Is it worth not at that point taking a punt on Parrott? I think there's a case to be had, but I have been very impressed with what I've seen from Gimenez, and I think his finishing ability, physicality are pretty good. Obviously, he's still also quite a young striker, and he's a similar age to Parrott, so you could say he's well ahead in his development. I would be intrigued. I think 40 million, I think, is a good price, and it's not a price where you're thinking, if it goes wrong, we've completely overspent. But also, we've cheaped out on Werner. We're potentially cheaping out on another winger. If we can push the boat out a bit more and get Gyökeres or something, I'd rather do that. But obviously, Gimenez, if that's more our price range, I'm not completely against it. I understand the value.
Yeah, Gyökeres is going to be like over double the price, though, isn't he? Probably closer to 100 million. And, Spurs don't like to do those deals. Otherwise, I would definitely go for Gyökeres over Gimenez. The values of him over Parrott, Gimenez has been doing it for a couple of years now. It's not just his first year where Parrott's like, this is his breakout year, isn't it? And you just never know what's going to happen with Troy Parrott, and you've got to trust Ange Postecoglou and the scouting kind of team, I guess, to make the right decision on this one. I'm just, at the beginning of the year, first half of the season, I was so convinced Gimenez is the man, but now this second half of the season has happened. It just has made me question it a little bit. So,
fair enough.
We'll just have to wait and see what happens. But that is your Tottenham update. Let me know in the comment section below your thoughts regarding Rodrigo Muniz and Santiago Gimenez. And what would you do with Troy Parrott and Emerson Royal as well? Let us know in the comment section below. Like, subscribe, comment. And as always, come on, you Spurs.